Well, bad, right?
Pretty good. Makes me want to spin around too.
All right, everybody, welcome to That's Growth Ops, where fireside warmth meets the sharp insights of operations experts. Join us weekly for candid conversations that dive deep into growth operations, from the latest in account-based marketing to innovative strategies for growth. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. Today, we have another special guest. He's been the Vice President of Brand and Community for Chili Piper and most recently Vice President of Community at Apollo.io. Please join me in welcoming community expert and marketing leader, Daniel Cmejla. Did I say that right?
You got it. Such a pleasure to be here alongside two folks I really respect, consider amazing practitioners, and Richard, I know we're working on it, but I also consider Christopher a friend. So I'm just so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I feel very mutual about the friendship, man. It's been fun. We've actually been able to hang out a few times now.
We have
two cool cities, Boston and San Francisco.
So it was great.
Well, let's start by unpacking some news that I've put together for the week. WordPress, my least favorite tool, is still struggling with compromised plugins. All too common and more reason to switch to a fully managed solution like HubSpot CMS, where you don't have to put that time in. But it seems that the most common plugins that are getting compromised are ones that are actually supposed to be protecting you.
Well, first of all, many years in building WordPress sites, totally understood the value of why it was a thing and totally understand why it's becoming less of a valuable thing. It's by being an open source tool, you are creating the potential for people to manipulate that. What was meant to be a good thing has been corrupted. So
yeah, I mean, we're seeing the same stuff with a MacBook. I bought a MacBook recently, and they recommended that I install Microsoft Office onto it because of the antivirus. So just like when something gets a large enough market share, there's an ecosystem that stands itself up alongside it. And sometimes that ecosystem is nice and complementary, and sometimes that ecosystem is predatory. And we see it all over, not just WordPress. So I'm not surprised, but there are better options than WordPress now. Kind of like the legacy offering.
Yeah, it's actually like such a good way to look at it too. Already dropping value, man. Like, I sometimes forget how narrow my scope of the universe is, and so that was really refreshing.
There you go.
More of that, please.
It's not even a minute in, and there's already value. Look at
that. That's how it goes.
Then there's Google's search liaison acknowledging imperfections in their ranking systems. Go figure that Google's search is outdated. What's happening is they're starting to see outdated reviews from years ago that are still affecting search, showing some of the worst reviews as the top reviews, anecdotal information versus value, and why. It's got us asking the question, why are they making it to the top of Google? And I think this is just more justification that traditional search, traditional marketing is dying, and we need to find new ways to get it out there.
I'm actually interested in your thoughts on this, Daniel. Do you have any? You're not required to have them.
I mean, just thoughts on the nature of Google being fallible. I mean, I think SEO is really interesting in the way that things rank because unlike lots of organic aspects of marketing to build a true customer relationship, it's basically like a numbers game, algorithmic battle. And, you see these demand gen marketers and these SEO marketers waging this battle versus Google, or whenever, they refresh the way SEO works, it causes chaos within these companies. So it just shows we live in an imperfect world, right? We're marketers marketing into a system built by other marketers who are just as good as us. And by just as good as us, I mean entirely imperfect. So I'm not surprised. To be honest, I'm not an SEO expert, but I think SEO you can't deny the impact that it has, but I do wonder how real it is, right? You know,
for somebody
kind of like a hack.
I mean, not to be like you're a legend, but like when it comes to being on the forefront of community building and like authentic relationship building, I mean, I've taken a lot of plays out of your playbook. And so like SEO, I think one of my top performing posts ever was SEO is trash, and kind of based on the reality, like it's a finite piece of time and you're battling for it. I'd rather just meet people and be available when that need arises.
Yeah, I mean, there's that joke about the SEO manager, right? Who walks into a bar, tavern, establishment, bacchanalian gathering, brew pub, and they just keep going through the words, and it was like a trash joke because it was way longer than they needed to be. They should have just gotten to the point. But something interesting on SEO is like there's this new SEO that's somewhat organic because there's just like so much volume in Google, so much volume that there's so much more sophistication. But like you go on TikTok and you look up, best email engagement provider, you go on YouTube Shorts, there are all these battles for like a new age SEO on YouTube. And what's cool about it is the people running these battles aren't necessarily trained SEO experts. They're just content producers trying to occupy the spaces of intellectual interest. So there's some space for SEO, but generally what I find is that the real gains in marketing are when you apply new techniques or when you apply techniques to things that newly changed. So SEO on Google is like, it's a difficult whale to hunt, I suppose, for using whale hunting metaphors, which I guess
I think that's
You're in
all
Monterey,
we should use.
So.
We should use them all day. No, don't hunt whales. They're beautiful animals that don't need to be hunted anymore. Once again, like agree with what you're saying. It's interesting though, like from being on the service side for like what clients expect. There's some like technical search engine optimization that needs to be done, but I kind of like bowed out of the SEO as a service fight many, many years ago because it just didn't feel authentic. And I learned the language of what is authentic and inauthentic over time. I certainly didn't understand why I didn't like it originally, but now with the help of people like you, I do get while I've fought or not fought certain battles.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you got to do. Like you got to do SEO depending upon your company, but it's just not my style.
Yeah.
Next. Next. All right. Reddit cracking down on crawlers. Why? Because some companies are lifting Reddit posts to feed their AI tools, essentially training them on stolen content. And that is coming from the space of, I think, this there's this world where it's like we got to be doing content, and we lose the human aspect of it. We're just trying to produce instead of providing any value. So I think like if you want to prevent your own site from being jacked this way too, it's really important to, on the technical side, to deal with the robots file. If you don't know how to do that, Google it. But essentially,
TikTok, Google. You'll get the SEO results. It'll be perfect.
They might be outdated. But yeah, no, it's coming from this space of I'm just going to feed all these Reddit questions into an automation and pass that data on to ChatGPT. And I will say I'm guilty of doing this at least once in my life. And then just having it
like something you would do.
It doesn't sound like something the automation and AI guy would do.
I mean, respectfully though, like it's one of your virtues that I love. Like you are an AI. Just I don't get it. It's not my brain doesn't function that way. I love AI. Thank God for you.
But I think what the missing is, like, so here's the difference between me and everyone else, is they're just allowing it to post without any human intervention, without adding any flair of their own, without adding in any of their tone of voice. And why is this content even important? That's the problem. Whereas when I build it, there's an approval process. I look at it. I go, what does this even mean for the person that's going to read it? I'm occupying a minute of their day. It better be worth it.
Yeah. There's so many dumb applications of AI now. Like,
oh my God.
And there's a couple like fallacies or problems with the product they all block into. And one is, garbage in, garbage out. So my question is like, all right, let's digest every Reddit post. So what are you creating? Like misogyny bot 2.0? Like what exactly is this? Like Reddit is such a garbage place to gather. But, when companies see, human conversations, we want to be human. Let's crawl this. It's data. It's valuable to us. Like not everything everyone has to say is valuable. I'm sorry, especially on Reddit. So
It's like-
even LinkedIn, like most of the stuff is garbage. So interesting take. I wonder sometimes if AI is just going to highlight the worst aspects of humanity.
I think it's the easiest to find, and if they're
Yeah.
finding and they're replicating, yeah, because like it's I don't know, maybe this is crazy, but like almost like the nice guy conversation, like nice guys finish last. Because not saying that that's a thing. I know we're all nice guys and we're all not last, but
I mean, unemployed
loud,
here,
obnoxious
there we go.
people share their opinions in loud and obnoxious ways way more frequently. That someone's like, I just disagree with that.
Yeah, and
And
people
that's-
want
and
salacious
that's-
takes. They don't want like a tempered, even-toned knowledge. They want something salacious and controversial. So people chase the algorithm to that, and then AI chases them. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it leads into this next piece too. In the research I was doing on it, the human traffic has actually decreased by 10% year over year since 2019. And that's because of all this crawling. So, I think cohesively on the other end of that spectrum is why we're starting to see more rise on organic content being created on social media and things like that, because as you've said, SEO is trash. And if we just keep feeding it trash, it's just going to become a trash heap. So I don't know.
That was such an inflammatory statement for me to make publicly and then to repeat it. That's like I can be like kind of a dick in real life, but like for me to put that on the internet, felt uncomfortable posting it until the people who I was kind of referring to engaged with it. And then I was like, is this the only way I could get people that I strongly disagree with to engage with me? I have not replicated that since, but yeah, it's interesting.
I wouldn't say SEO is trash. I just don't really fully understand it. It's like that thing we all have to do. It's like G2 reviews, right? Like we all are stuck in the G2 review civil war. That doesn't mean it's trash. It just means that certain aspects of marketing are somewhat detached from reality, and companies need to invest there in order to remain competitive, including SEO.
Agreed.
Yeah, there's definitely merit to certain parts of it. The technical side of things is really important. And then there's sides that not every business needs to do.
A lot of it's trash, though. I agree, Chris.
Yeah.
You're right.
There was like a asterisk 3 sentences down, so it was just like, by the way. Anyway, I couldn't go off full douche. It just was like just a nice sprinkle.
I think you can do it. You got to just give yourself more time.
Honestly, I like being a champion for being nice and pleasant and accurate. Versus maybe some of the I mean, for me lately, it's just the LinkedIn guru thing has just really been like driving me nuts. I try to
set they've all migrated from Facebook.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I got another joke about, you hear the joke about organic reach on Facebook? Nobody heard it. I'm just like dad joking all episode.
Bro, listen.
Keep going. Oh, wow.
He's ready for you.
I got to find them. I got to find a way to make this board easier to, hey, I can do it like that. Never mind.
I got a piano right here. I've just started taking lessons and stuff, and it's a lot of fun.
Piano is fun. Well, that's all I got for the news.
That should be the name of the podcast. Piano is fun. Starring Daniel, Chris, and Rich.
SEO is Trash, the new podcast by Chris Null.
Yeah, it's short. It's short. He only says it once.
We'll do a segue series on that.
I like it.
Love it.
It'll just be hours of Chris commentating.
Please no. Please do not.
Or it's like a series of shorts where you're on a Segway and it's like on a mission to find SEO that's not trash. And it's just like you exploring different, like going up a large hill with no one around you, like going into the distance. I like that.
I think we have a new angle for TikTok.
Going uphill is terrifying. Going downhill on a Segway, way more terrifying. I'm a large dude, and gravity and I have just never saw eye to eye, honestly.
Except when you fall off that Segway, then you're eye to eye with gravity.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Yes.
Well, perfect segue into the next bit. Where's that? There we go. Cool. So Daniel, tell me, you and Chris, you've been friends now for a bit. You've kind of worked together. How did you guys meet?
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting question because we met in my first week at Apollo, and one of the things, I'm about to launch a consultancy, I think, at the request of maybe like 100 people who reached out to me this last week
Welcome to the
after I
party.
announced my departure from Apollo. But one of the first things I encourage companies to do before they get fancy and pay an influencer or, have their CEO stop building the product roadmap and start posting on LinkedIn is just take stock of who you already have on your team. And I remember one of my first days at Apollo, I was looking online and I saw a post from Chris and it was like, I love Apollo and I don't love Zoom Info also, or something like that. And I reached out and I was like, let's explore this. Tell me why you love Apollo. Tell me more about what your goals are. Tell me about your business, right? Because, you have the pool of everyone that exists. And then within that, you have the pool of your happy customers. And then within that, there's a certain percentage of those happy customers who their goals overlap with your goals in terms of evangelism, in terms of brand building, in terms of being the primary vehicle to distribute the story of the tools that they want. You and Chris have built this incredible business at the intersection of HubSpot and Apollo and Rollworks and a couple other companies. So when I saw that you were already doing that, I just need to lean in with this guy. And what I didn't expect is beyond just leaning in from an evangelism perspective, we ended up both leaning in as friends. So it's been a real pleasure and honor, Chris. And honestly, one of the saddest aspects of the departure from Apollo for me is not being able to continue to work with some of these folks in the context of their usage of Apollo as a software. But, here I am a couple days out and we're still chatting. So I'm the luckiest guy, man. I feel so lucky to know you. And I feel like our story's still in the first couple chapters. Maybe we're at the start of chapter 2 right now.
I agree. I just want to say, and I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but by you giving growth even like a little bit of spotlight, because HubSpot, the ecosystem's so big, and we've built a really good reputation in it. But by you shedding a little light on us and our approach to Outbound, HubSpot partners, just like the universe, took us a little bit more seriously. And it gave me a voice to kind of battle a lot of the softwares that offer commission and pretend that's a real partnership. You really helped me elevate a conversation that I wasn't an active participant in. And I continue to champion, if you're trying to build a partner program, how Daniel and his team at Apollo did it is the right way. Like they actually listened. That was cool, man. That was a big deal. And we try to, we've launched our Redwood Grove community and it's becoming successful. Probably more effort and more time than I thought, but we're now having conversations with strangers inside of a Slack channel. Full grown. That's what, for me, that was the first sign of authentic life, was two people I didn't know talking about a thing and having a conversation around a problem.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we at least have the DNA of something that is worth growing.
I can't wait to see it continue to grow, and it takes time, and that means a lot from a partnership perspective. We have an incredible director of partnerships at Apollo, Jennifer Rima, who's awesome and manages a lot of these partnerships from a referral flow perspective. And what I'm excited to see that program continue to expand into is a central goal versus kind of a side effect is trying to manage partnership relationships from an advocacy perspective, because people don't think about the value of an advocate, about having someone in your corner who consistently comments on your stuff, who's there for you, who you can call for advice and things like that. And when you build advocates, you're actually also building referrals. You're just not necessarily asking for it in as transactional a way. So I love working with you. I love the nature that our partnership took. I love the other partnership efforts that Apollo's still undergoing. And, I'm the lucky guy. I feel very lucky.
You accidentally brought up an interesting perspective about what you did at Apollo too. And then from my perspective, being so active in the HubSpot universe, was, for me, it felt like when I first heard of your departure, I was obviously worried about you and Taylor as people first. But then I was like, hey, maybe Apollo now will look at companies like Growth a different way, because community was bringing in so many transactions. They never really treated the partnership program like a partnership program. And I think now they kind of may have to. Not may have to, but they may see the value of what HubSpot did, which is build 7,000 companies that are deeply knowledgeable about a product to handle solving the problems that can come up with using a software, and then empower them. And so we'll see.
I would love to see it too. And, I think sometimes there's just so much work to be done. Like partnerships revenue is about 15% of all revenue at Apollo. That's amazing. It was 2 people running the program. It was just Jennifer forever. And then she hired someone to manage all of our technical integrations. Like if you look at HubSpot, they probably have 100 people focused on that. So I'm excited just to see those programs grow. That team is growing considerably, and I'm just super bullish on the future of that team as well.
That's cool. That was like some of the questions, I don't really peer into Rich's question sheet. I don't want to have like influence on it, but I definitely am gonna. Maybe now's the time. Rich, this is on the list. I'm curious as to like having spent 2 years in a platform that's considered one of the top sales platforms in the world, according to G2 and me. Like HubSpot, Salesforce, Apollo are like the big 3 now. Sales enablement. What? As a software platform, there's so many like replicants of what you all were doing in pieces. What do you think of the future is for outbound SDRing and with the mix of AI and things? Like, do you see tools like Apollo continuing to expand and grow? Are you cut your losses because it's it's outdated? What are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, we've been hearing, like death of a salesman, like Willy Loman died, 100 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Yet it's still one of the driving professions throughout the world. And, when I think of a tool like Apollo, I'm just so grateful that it exists because, you can't go out and knock on a door to pitch your e-commerce solution. Like you can't go to a town square and sell a SaaS solution. Like the access to data is a fundamental enabler of innovation, because to innovate and to sell something, you need to have customers to sell it to. So like there are 2 aspects of your question, the future of AI and the future of Apollo, which is kind of what I'm taking from both of them. Maybe the second question wasn't really there, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Like Apollo, I think is really well positioned because it took a drastically different role, a path in the market before I even joined. And that path was, rather than trying to charge as much as possible for the solution, they try to make the solution as accessible as possible. And what this means that you don't have to be a venture-backed company to access data. But then when you put AI tools on top of it, it actually becomes kind of a scary world. Like, because there are AI tools out there that already can do a lot of amazing stuff. I don't think we're at the point where you can write full cadences using AI writing and have them be great right now. But what you can do is eliminate a huge percentage of the prospecting work, of the research work. And that's a huge part of our sales profession. Like sales reps spend an insane amount of time prospecting and researching. So what happens if AI replaces that, but is cost prohibitive so that only venture-backed companies can access it? What that would mean is that would mean an unequal access to innovation and an unequal access to like technological excellence, and that only being accessible to these highly venture-backed companies, I think it's a dangerous space for our world. So in terms of the future of sales, sales is strong. Like don't ever let anyone tell you sales is dead. They've never worked in sales, or they have worked in sales because they're projecting because they're done with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't see AI replacing humans. I see it augmenting humans, but there is going to be an additional side effect where there's going to be a new burden of proof in sales, the proof of showing that you're a human. So I can't remember who said this, but the future of sales is going to require you to be radically human. And I think that's pretty cool as well. Like, how do I prove my humanity in this email? It's a new burden of proof, but a pretty fun one.
I think it's a fun one for a lot of reasons. And the one just being like, that's showing up authentically, wanting to help and put the person in connection with the right solution has just been a big part of who I am. And that's transferred over to growth. And that's why when I meet certain people like you, there's like a fast connection.
Yeah, for sure. And I there's also something about our connection. It's just,
we both have
just
great
got a
hair.
connection, man. Okay,
no?
so you know how you know like all the lyrics to random songs from the 90s or whatever, and then you hear it for the first time, you're like, wow, that's me with people's LinkedIn history and all kinds of stuff. So it was Shaniqua Ivy who made this post, a random comment on a post like a year ago. The future of sales is going to require you to be radically human. Really good quote. Really good quote.
That's a good quote.
That is really good.
So good luck, robots.
I have to 100% agree, because it's almost in line with what I was saying earlier about the scraping and stuff. You've got to have this system of augmentation where human is still involved in it, and the AI is just accelerating what we're capable of doing. And where I see people being left in the dust is not embracing any of it. And then secondly, those that over embrace it. Like, you can't farm out your business to AI. It doesn't exist. It's like why you see so many shitty AI products out there, because you're using AI to create an AI program, and it just doesn't work.
Who knows what it'll be like in the future? Like, we're at the very beginning of this technology, and the pace at which it's developing is pretty wild. In some cases, scary. And, you know, I thought of when I left Apollo, hey, like, do I go work at OpenAI? Like, is this what I do? I build community for them. And I think I'm more excited about building a community marketing agency, because it's almost like community marketing to some extent is the answer to AI, where it's like AI is a profusion of insanely high velocity content that's inauthentic, and community is a profusion of creating insanely high velocity content that is authentic by definition. So I think that's so cool. Like, a lot of companies are crushing this right now. Paulo's doing an amazing job. Clay's doing an amazing job. You all are doing an incredible job. But like, people want to hear real stories. And as AI makes up a broader and broader percentage of the content that we see, the real stories will shine even brighter. And that's why I'm so bullish on community marketing right now. Just like really passionate about it also. Maybe you've noticed.
I mean, what do you like? Let's pretend, Daniel LLC is up, or like Community or Bust LLC, whatever you end up going with a cool hip name, right? Do you see companies coming to you that have tried community and it hasn't worked and need direction and strategy and execution? Are you prepared to have the conversations with companies that have the money, but maybe have no idea how long it takes to create authentic relationships? Or have you started to walk through what some of those like sales challenges might be at your own hypothetical company in the future?
Really good question. I guess I'll know soon, right? I mean, when is this podcast going to air, right? Because I have 100 DMs I haven't replied to from this week in terms of companies and what they see. But here would be my vibe now, that there are kind of probably two buckets. The first bucket is a group of people, maybe there are three buckets, but the third bucket's probably not reaching out, the one that doesn't understand community marketing. But so we're going to ignore them. But one bucket would be the people who see the value in community marketing, but they don't understand what it is. This is like, we have a lot of user love, but we don't know what to do with them. Like, what do we do? So you come in there and you give them a playbook of how to engage, how to build authentic relationships, how to start marketing through your customers instead of to your customers. And the other group is a group of companies who like get it. Like, they've watched, like, you get it, and it wasn't until Richard came on that you were able to have the bandwidth to actually, and a couple other people on your team came on, that you're able to have the bandwidth to actually do it. So I think that second bucket is what I'm most interested in, hiring a small team and not advising, but going in and doing the work, like building out their customer advisory boards, like giving them a playbook of 5 things you do every time someone gives you love, and then a way to evaluate the additional 5 things you can do if people are great. Because, that first week when I was looking at everyone saying they loved Apollo, Chris, I thanked everyone, but I only built a deeper relationship with a subset of people. And determining like who it is that you go deeper with and how you do that and how you lean in with them in an authentic way, I think it's something that doesn't come naturally to companies, because it's not as trackable, right? I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to have this conversation with you and I expect 5 referrals per month. Let's do it. And then when you get 5 referrals, you get a gold star. And then when you get 10 referrals, you get a gold planet. Then when you get
sweet.
15 referrals,
Coffee
you get
mug.
a gold sun. It's more about building the relationship and trusting that organic word of mouth will bring your company forward. It's really tough to get data on that. And Apollo is one of the companies, and Chili Piper, both that I've been at, that really have like a true amazing story there. That has data that shows that, hey, this actually works. And you show it directionally versus tracking every single deal. Like, I'm sure you all have provided so much business value to Apollo in terms of referrals, in terms of advocacy, helping us close deals that are late stage, joining reference calls, things like that. You know how much of that revenue I have attributed to my name? Like zero.
Yeah.
And that partially speaks to the fact I could be doing a better job tracking this, but it also speaks to the fact that you focus on the relationship, and then your litmus test for success is we have a powerful relationship. And then maybe there's some other stuff, like you track user-generated content impressions or revenue from reference calls, things like that. Like focusing on the relationship, people don't get it. And then when they do it, the board's like, what happened here? Like, we see increased website traffic, but how do you know that was community? Right? That's the box I want to unlock for people.
That's awesome, man. I mean, it's nice hearing you on this, like, start of a new chapter, talking about community and just how it directly and indirectly influences how companies can grow. And again, I've been on the side of being someone who's been engaged with when you first started your job, but I've also seen the impact it's had for Apollo from a brand perspective and from a partner perspective, how much easier it is to sell using Apollo today than it was 2 years ago, which was why I was making the post to begin with. It was like, hey, let me shed a little light on Apollo so people will take it seriously. It's really cool. And I really hope more companies get into it.
And like, dude, the Apollo team is so stacked. I look at the marketing team now. You have Hallie Panout, the product marketing leader. You have Andrew Maddock, the demand gen leader. You got Josh Garrison running content. Under him, you have Robin, who's like this amazing content marketer who was like running social for HubSpot at a certain point. Like, one of the aspects of community that people don't think about is how it affects your recruiting brand, right? Like, and this is a whole other thing. Like, when people look at me, they don't think, wow, Dan, like, he's a recruiter. You know, I referred 9 people into Apollo that got full-time jobs. And at Chili Piper, every interview, they would mention our LinkedIn presence. Every single one. Over 150,000 people applied to Apollo last year. That number went up 10x. Raising $100 million helped. But you know, community is so much more than acquisition. It's retention, it's NRR, it's talent, it's culture, it's everything.
It's required now. I mean, especially as like the old guard is leaving, you know, the ones that, Janice, how do I get into my computer? Like, that guard is retiring out, thankfully. And we all, even though, you know, Daniel, I don't know exactly how old you are, but the internet was still new as I was getting into college. I'm that old, like 41. So for people that have just had access to it all the time, I can imagine that this is just like even more important. I'm thankful. Maybe it'll help keep, you know, like prevent people from doing any bad practices too, because it's just so much easier for bad practices to bubble up to the surface now. Hopefully it's like a little preventative medicine.
Yeah, I mean, certainly,
not always.
Like, social responsibility in businesses is part of community marketing. Because if community marketing is about working with companies that you enjoy working with, generally people like working with people that they think are good people. So I do think that there's like an increased scrutiny on brands. Like 10 years ago, if your board was all men, people wouldn't care. And now it's like, ooh, no, gross, you know, and that's great. Like, that's awesome. Like, we need more corporate accountability.
Agreed. You have to, I've been an advocate for not just like the low key diversity, but just understanding that, like, I started off the podcast saying I have a unique view of the universe that was formed by my version of living here and experiencing it. And I've just found so much value learning from, working with, engaging with people that have entirely different views. And the reality is that where you're from and your background are a factor in what becomes your keyhole of the universe.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm pro that. bring them on. If you've got a great attitude and you're a badass at what you do and always want to get better, hit me up on LinkedIn. We'll chat.
Yeah, there was a really interesting image I saw a while back where it's like where you are, and imagine like a ladder, and like there's me. I'm on the 10th flight of the stairs of the community marketer ladder. I'm at the top of the stairs, right? And there's someone else who's also at the top of the stairs, or maybe they're even 3 rungs down. But then you look to the bottom of this image, and it's like, where did you start? Like, I am so privileged, like not only being a white guy, but I've also had like a bunch of incredible mentors. I've had all of this success, and it's so much easier for me to find success now because of my past success. But it's like, you know, my dad has been giving me business proverbs since I was a kid. He was a VP of Fidelity Investments, and I think that really materially helped me. So, like when I think about accomplishments and I think about my network, I not only think what has this person done, but I think like what can I uniquely learn from different experiences. And then also when I just like I'm assessing candidates, either it's like what did this person overcome in order to get where they are now. And it's just like it's so nuanced, just the nature of professional progression. What I would recommend to everyone is build like your own personal customer advisory board for your career. Chris, you might not know this, but you're actually on my personal advisory board, where it's like every big segment in your life, you have a group of people that you'll reach out to them. They should be within your company and outside of your company. Get advice. Should I leave my company? Where should I work next? What do you think about this situation that happened? What do you think about this? And like, if you build this network around yourself, it'll be really, really powerful. But what I found is I was assessing this network and I was like, they're all guys. They're all guys. Like, I need a diverse set of perspectives in this network, because then these people will both give you different perspectives, but they'll also help you understand the different perspectives of the teams that you serve. Like, if you're getting advice from all men, then you might not get the mentorship you need to be an effective leader to a team of women or something like that. So I'm all about it. And everyone's perspective is so different. And it's your job as a leader to expose yourself to different perspectives so that you seek to understand them. And only then can you be understood. That's a Mark Twain quote that my dad told me was his quote forever. I was like, Dad,
I remember you bringing that up.
Also,
thank you for putting such heavy responsibility on me without my permission. But
by the way, yeah, I'm unemployed. What do I do next, Chris? I really could use some help.
What about next? Yeah, exactly. Like, I need a follow up. This is being recorded, so we'll worry about the AI automated follow up after this. But that is a really good point, though, especially for career. I mean, I was going to say career oriented people, and then I feel like, well, I mean, like life is kind of a career too. I mean, having people that are not you to talk about your life and how to improve it or how to make a decision is a really good idea. It's interesting because I haven't had that, maybe by choice. So I'm like,
Dude,
maybe that's a good way to round out my. It's lonely at the top has been my like view of the universe.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for you because you're kind of in a unique place. What are you, diamond? You platinum partner now? What level HubSpot partner are you?
Diamond with like still an inch away from elite. God.
Okay, if you're watching this right now, just work with Chris. Let's get him all the way there. Come on.
Please.
But yeah, you're at the top, right? So like what I generally recommend to people, and I do this in the onboarding with all my new employees or the employees that I serve, is I say, go online and find me people who have the job you want 3 years from now, who have the job 5 years from now. Let me see the list. And then I'm like, go reach out to them and tell them that you think they're awesome, that they have the job you want in 5 years. And all you want is just their advice. And you'll build this incredible network around yourself. Like, it will be awesome. And then the one other aspect of this is interesting. And you know, I can ramble. So maybe it's not the one other, but one other aspect, not the one other aspect, is like, this is really true as well politically. And I don't want to get too into politics. Like, I live in Vermont. I worked for Bernie Sanders for a long time. I do events for the White House occasionally. So maybe you know where I stand. But like, if all I did was talk about politics with my other liberal Burlington, Vermont friends, I would not be able to effectively do politics because I wouldn't understand what people actually feel. Right? You need to expose yourself to perspectives that are different to you in politics, in business, in life, in love, in everything, in order to really understand where you sit in the world of perspectives. This is true for business and it's true for ideas as well.
That message was stated to me by one other person in a large group, not to me one-on-one, but it was when Barack Obama was the final, it was like a sit-down chat with Brian Halligan at Inbound a couple of years ago,
awesome.
and said the same
I
thing.
spoke right before that, and nobody
You did.
saw my speech. Yeah, Lauren
I'm
Richardson
sorry.
and I gave a speech immediately before Obama, and I was like, I'm introducing Obama. But instead, everyone just got their seats for Obama. It was a smaller stage. Sorry I cut you off, but yeah, I was there. I saw the Obama speech as well.
And you were like, God, Obama took my quote. Is that what you were thinking? And then you were
I
like,
said, yeah, I said this
well,
thing
you
like,
used it
how
well.
do we deal with revenue operations? You might say no, but I say, yes, we can deal with revenue operations.
Yes. No, it was really great.
Change your CRM from Salesforce to HubSpot.
Now,
Yes, we can.
rant. Change the entire. So, are you from the part of Vermont where Ben and Jerry's is from?
I know Ben. I know Jerry a little bit too, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly where they live, but they spend a lot of time here. The first Ben and Jerry's was in Burlington, Vermont. You know how you go on your phone and it's like, here are all the faces of the people. Ben is one of the people in my phone because I did all these events with him, with Bernie. So he's a really brilliant entrepreneur and really, really impressive guy. So yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff in
his
Vermont.
advocacy. Like they take a hard stance on access, diversity, and it's just so rare because you put yourself at such risk by being such a champion. And thank God they balanced it out with such a sweet, delicious treat that no one can really say no to. So I think they're like uniquely powered. The irony of having something so delicious also empowering change is like classic. Nice job.
Yeah, so they sold to Unilever, but they kept a charitable arm of their ice cream business, which is really cool. And I hope Ben doesn't get upset at me for this. I remember him saying it, so I'm going to try and rephrase it. But he gave this really interesting speech once about when he was younger, he got busted smoking weed. And they just forgave him because he's like a super well-spoken white guy. He had connections. And he was saying, like, if I'd been black, Ben and Jerry's might never have existed, because if you look at the rate of incarceration, like for people who are white versus black, it's different, right? And the penalties that you face are often impacted by things that you can't control, like not only your race or your gender and stuff, but even other things that you might not expect. Like there's a really interesting case study called the halo effect, and it showed then the Canadian justice system. People were given cash settlements that were proportional to how a separate independent group rated their attractiveness. Like, so there's all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on, understanding, like, the way in which people make decisions and how those decisions aren't necessarily indicative of the actions that happen, more the person and the circumstances of those actions is really interesting. Yeah, Ben and Jerry, this story was really powerful when he brought it home. But aren't we supposed to be talking about marketing operations? Like, what's going on? What's half the audience going to think?
This is a fireside chat. So the idea is that we're just three homies chatting about kind of marketing, but isn't this, I mean, you are talking about market segments. I mean, it does not even color of skin or gender identity. It's like who you love. It's just like there's weird, it's all terrible. And maybe thankful is not the right word, but I am a broad-shouldered, dark-haired white guy. And so I made a joke to Rich. He came out to Monterey recently that when you're in public spaces, people get bumped and stuff, like, oh, it's so busy. I don't have that problem. Any physical space I go to, it's weird. Like, my halo effect is nobody wants to get close to me. So
it's hilarious.
We're in a river in Big Sur. I moved to another part of the river. People fill the space I was in, and I didn't even think about it. You just go back to that side, and all of a sudden it clears out. I don't know why I'm talking about hanging out in Big Sur. I digress.
That was a great trip. That was a great trip.
Anyway,
I think it's important. Like, let me look at us now. Like, I'm certain for these other events, you'll have more women and people, but we're like three white guys right here, and I think it's important that we have these conversations, not just to like have a woman on and then tokenize them by talking about women's issues. Like, let's talk about women's issues here and then talk about marketing operations when, like, the best marketing operations people like Sarah McNamara or whoever come aboard. Like, you know,
yeah, man. And hopefully I can get connected to more of them. It's something that's it's on top of
I
mind.
got you. I got
Thank
you,
you.
man. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean it's a conversation. I'm probably oversharing, and she might kill me for this, but like as growth has grown, we've talked about diversity and who we hire. And Katrina, who is my fiance, soon to be wife, and is the director of service at Growth, is a person of color. And so I'll bring this up to her, like, hey, here's the people I'm interviewing, and she's like, Chris, right now we have a responsibility to our clients and our team to be the best we can. Like, for her, choose the person that's going to help us build a business so we can all survive. And when we have the ability to help others, let's open that up. But right, if that makes any sense, I hope I'm saying it well enough to not put her in the backspin.
What I'm hearing partially from what you're saying is a couple things, but one of them is interesting because it's like in COVID, D&I kind of took a back step to efficiency with this tech turndown and things like that. But what a lot of people don't understand, and I think this is where the argument is quite wrong about D&I, is like D&I isn't a philanthropic thing. Like the best social media manager I've ever met is a Hispanic Latino woman. And like if I had an existing bias where I had not hired her because I wanted to hire someone who looked similar to me, I would have suffered. The business would have suffered. So it's like oftentimes like getting through our own implicit bias is a way to accurately identify the best talent and understanding like the circumstances under which someone has had their career helps us understand what their growth potential is, right? But the last aspect of this is like the buying committee has changed as well. And people want to buy from those that are similar to themselves to some extent. So like if you don't have a diverse team, then it's going to be more difficult to sell. And there's also just stuff like there's data on women being better sellers, like have higher quota attainment in general. So yeah.
Well, it's a topic of conversation here. It's important. I definitely can go on record and say I don't have it figured out yet. I'm just a dude trying to get by.
What I would say is like the best thing for you to do would be to just expand your group of mentors to include people across all different backgrounds, races, genders, physical location, in even different aspects of the buying committee. Like you chat with a lot of marketers, maybe you need to chat with more salespeople. Like maybe you need to chat with, Cisco, like chief information security officers, because that's a new part of the GTM, like evaluation package. I don't know. What else do we want to talk about, Richard? Richard, you're just like, all right, let's do it. We're talking about gender.
Hey, listen, someone needs to. I'm happy to put myself out there as an imperfect example of real life process.
Yeah, and I will say also, let's just all backtrack everything we said. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. So if you're reading this, like, I don't claim to be an expert on any of this stuff. These are just my thoughts, and I'm certain I got it wrong a lot.
Man, you're great, man. I just appreciate like the humility and like the direction of having this conversation is something that most three white dudes talking on a microphone would probably have leaned away from.
Maybe we should have.
Maybe we should have. Yeah, maybe we should.
I mean, it's like, and this is what I say, and this is another thing that's like, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe it's better to just not say anything. But it's like, I do think there is value in at least just trying and challenging your preconceptions, and just, engaging in the conversations that maybe make you feel a little bit unsafe, because there's so much polarization in the world now that people tend to just stay away from issues they could get in trouble for. But that's often where the most growth happens, personally and professionally, and for society.
I mean, that was the bridge that got us here, was really talking about you and, when Obama basically snatched your quote.
Yeah.
But just like being able to have this conversation.
Don't get me started on Obama. I know he's been planning his whole life to speak at Inbound as well. It's like a major milestone in his career, speaking at Inbound, just like me with my 30 guests. And then he had to, don't you have enough? Come on.
Yeah. I mean, that guy is a man.
He's great. He's great.
I digress. So
I want to touch on, I'm going to steal this back though. I think all of this is 100% needed in conversation. And what I'm really getting is a sense of building a team around community. So when you're looking, Daniel, like what are the types of people that you're looking for to bring into team and that you're willing to invest not only time and energy, but just your personality into? Like, what are you looking for there?
This is a really tough question. Like, how do you hire effectively? It's really tough, and it all depends on the role. But there are a couple things that I really like to do. So one thing I like to do is tell people how I interview at the front end of an interview. I'll tell people in every interview, I'll be like, what I really like is if you can tell me about things you've accomplished, tangible facts, because I'll have all these amazing philosophical conversations. At the end of the day, I'll struggle to chat with people. Like, you're not hiring someone based on how good they are at interviewing. You're hiring someone based on how good they are. So in the interview, you need to help people. Like, you need to help them be confident. You need to start them off with like things they can crush. Like, I like to start interviews with, tell me about one of the things that has a metric tied to it that you're most proud of. How'd you do it? What was the metric? And then they'll be like, one time I did this amazing thing. And I'll be like, that's amazing. And that confidence brings them through. But if you started someone with a really tough question, then you're asking them, hey, how would you perform in a really difficult work environment where you're not supported, right? You're not going to actually get that value. So that's one thing that's really important just in the interview process, trying to help people be successful. Like, I hired someone recently who's amazing, brilliant marketer. And in the interview, I asked her, what does Apollo do? And she did not do a good job. I'll be totally honest. She did a bad job answering the question. Everything else was perfect though. So I told her, I said, hey, let's have another chat in a week. I'm going to ask you, what does Apollo do? And she comes into that meeting, crushes it. All these use cases. Apollo combines data and engagement. It's got hundreds of millions of records. It's got all of these amazing AI tools that make it easier to prospect. It's got intent. It's got lead scoring. It's got call recording. It differentiates from its competitors because it has a voluntary contributory data network that makes it better, and it's lower cost, and the people are better. And she said all of this stuff. And then I went to Cmejla and I said, if you want to hire this person, let's hire her. That showed that while she might not have been a SaaS expert to begin with, like somebody who went to business school for some SaaS thing, or some guy who's already been in the industry for a long time, she has an incredible capacity to learn, is driven, is motivated, is brilliant. So you got to just give people a chance to be their best. That would be what I would say with the limited time we have.
I think you accidentally did something kind of clever too, which is empower them to be powerful in their interview, like by giving them something that they're confident in and have accomplished. They're no longer setting themselves up with like this fear. Like if you started with like, how do you manage working with a terrible work environment where your boss sucks? And they're like, oh my God, like why? That to me, it would be like, is that what you're setting me up for? That sounds like a terrible
toxic.
job. Yeah. So good job, man. I think the way that you approach it is, if anything from today, I selfishly gained a new way to add more value to growth by interviewing differently. I'm going to try that.
I mean, I'm happy to hear that. I mean, you got such an amazing team already. So what you're doing is clearly working, but like the best managers help people bring out the best in themselves. And that starts in the interview process.
Yeah.
How do you deal with? I've got another question for Daniel. This is off the cuff. How do you deal with it?
But I have plans to play pickleball at the homeowner of a local brewery. So I do have to go soon.
All right. Do you have a last question, Rich? So I can always holler at Daniel via like a phone call, like a normal friend.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say like it being inspired, and I'm inspired by this conversation because it's similar to something I heard about Elon Musk, where he asks questions when he's doing his interviews that are about figuring out how people think, and get to the end result. Versus, like, I love the metric part. I think that's really important. But being able to say something like, what obstacles are in front of us today that would prevent us from having a flying car?
Yeah.
in a year.
It's fun. Or like, how many ping pong balls are in San Francisco? I don't ask those questions, but the thinking about how people think, like what I like to ask people is, what causes a customer to be passionate about a software? Like, and that you don't need to be like, I don't need to be like, well, like I drive 75% of the acquisition at Apollo through this passion to answer that question properly. I could say people want to be heard. They want to be respected. They want you to identify what's important to them and support them. And they want to take incremental steps of loyalty, eventually becoming super loyal. Like, you don't need to have turned a company into a unicorn to understand the fundamentals of that question. Chris, what was your question? What was your question?
I typed it to you, but I haven't hit send yet. But in the interview process, I struggle with defining someone's tenacity in tough situations. Like we haven't had the $100 million investment, and it's not like bills don't get paid, but there's moments where it's like we have to kind of rise to the occasion. And I still struggle with trying to find the right question to hear that. So then I go into this like rugby thing and I try to like set them up to like say what I'm hoping that they say, essentially. Like I like lead the answer. Do you even deal with that? Is that a problem?
I have a question I ask in every interview about this. I'll say, what's an example of a time that you did something, messed up, and then asked for help from those around you? And how did that go? Because it's such a powerful story, because it forces them to be honest about something they didn't do properly, which forces that it'll cause them to reveal that they have self-awareness, and then it shows that they had an issue that was so significant that they had to involve someone else. So it shows collaboration, and then it shows success from that. Like, we all should have multiple instances of this in our career, messing up, raising our hand, asking for help, and then doing it, because it's like everyone has their own problems. Like, the top performers have totally different problems. Like, the people who be the very best people, often they really struggle to ask for help. Sometimes the best people struggle to collaborate as much because they want to move so fast. And at their last job, they weren't surrounded with A players. So it was faster for them to do things alone. So that's what I generally like to ask, or I'll ask, like, what's an example of a time you encountered adversity and how'd you push through it? Those are questions I like to ask. The rugby stuff is good, but dude, you might get some sport metaphor. You might get some sport metaphor.
It's not good. Honestly, can I just be just like blunt? Like, it's not great. It definitely shows my limitations as a leader. That's okay. I'm just a human too, and I'm growing.
Yeah, we're all growing, and that's one of the great things about management, I think, is like setting the expectation from the beginning that you want their feedback. Like, I had a point where I was struggling, and I set up a meeting with the leadership team, and I said, this meeting is for everyone to criticize me in a safe space. And the feedback I got from that meeting made me so much better, but also reduced the burden of me being like, hey, I'm perfect. Like, from the very beginning, you let your teams know you're not going to be perfect, but together you can always have that bidirectional communication. That creates so much psychological safety. I think it's really powerful.
Did you prep that with them question beforehand so they came in with answers, or did you hit them with it? I did.
I prepped it beforehand. I was like, we're going to have this meeting monthly, and the purpose of the meeting is just for you to give me feedback on things I can do better. And then it's like, if you don't solicit that feedback, you're going to be blindsided by it in an exit interview.
Dude, you dropped some bangers today. For lack of good. Who knew? I knew. You knew. Rich, you're new to Daniel, but
on
you
the
should have
pickleball
known.
Court. So,
oh man, yeah. Enjoy the game. Thank you for being such a good friend. Thank you for being a growth advocate. You're the man. Keep shedding light. I can't wait to see what comes of your next phase of your career, and if there's ever anything I can do. I'm going to do that.
I'm going to be in your DMs, man. You know it. I am eager to see too. Like, this is the first time I've not had a job. So I don't think that'll last very long, but it's exciting. Like, I can do whatever I want. Within that I'm qualified for, that people will humor me on. So I can't wait for it.
Yeah, man. You've got a lot of good opportunity. You built a great community in real life and in real life for several companies now.
Before you go, Daniel, we have a tradition that we started a couple episodes ago. And the question that was asked by our last guest gets asked of our newest guest, and that was, what is the last thing in your Spotify playlist that you played?
Oh my God, I can't share this.
Oh, you have to. It's okay. Just be,
And then you
Well,
get to
fine,
create a question for
fine.
the next person.
It's Nasty by Tina Shay, because a former social media manager of ours posted this thing to LinkedIn. She said, "Is anybody going to match my freak?" And it was a screenshot of like 12,000 screenshots on her phone, like the number of screenshots that she has. So I got to admit, it was that. That was
I think
what
that's great.
that was the last song.
Awesome. So what's our question for our next guest? You get to create that one.
Oh gosh, I would say, let's just stick with the same question, and then hopefully we'll eventually stumble on someone whose answer is more embarrassing than mine, and I'll be able to breathe again.
pay it forward. Pay it forward. That question was from Jesse DiAgostino, who did win community member of the year in the community
Yeah, I
that you
love
built.
Jesse. He's amazing. You got such a great team.
Do you know
Thank
that
you
I've known
for
him since I
all
was
that
8
you
years
did to
old?
help build that community. It's so awesome.
Yeah,
And
man,
just with the
we
last
care.
minute, I just want to say shout out to the entire Apollo team. I'm rooting for you all. Great team there, and I think the team's going to get even better.
Well said.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank
We
you.
got an
Appreciate you
outro
too.
coming, so don't run too late. Be safe.
Bye.
Have fun. Pickling.
See ya.
Love you, be
No,
good.
I'm going to just fade out on the treadmill desk.